What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Monday, November 6th, 2023, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now, it is 12:49 p.m. Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming out of the Middle East. So I want to update you on what's going on over there. So the latest information that I have is that apparently a U.S. nuclear bomber flew over Saudi Arabia today. This was a B-1 Lancer, and it was equipped with a sniper pod. Now, the sniper pods are used for military aircraft that provide positive target identification, autonomous tracking, GPS coordinate generation, and precise weapons guidance from extended standoff ranges. Okay, so basically a target locator, a target finder, a target designator. That's what a sniper pod is. And this is very, very concerning. It means that the U.S. is preparing for a standoff with Iran and possibly other players in the Middle East. And we do know that two U.S. B-1 nuclear bombers went to Turkey last week. They landed at Incirlik Air Base, which also happens to be where the U.S. keeps their B-61 nuclear gravity bombs for the NATO nuclear sharing mission. We have like over 50 or 60 B-61s at that air base. Okay, so if we do have to perform some nuclear strikes on Iran, we have the assets in the region now to do that. Okay, if things do escalate. And I reported late last night in my update late last night that the U.S. military confirmed that an Ohio class sub has now entered the Central Command area of responsibility, which is basically the Middle East. Okay, and if you don't know what an Ohio class sub is, it's also known as a boomer. That's the slang word for them. The Ohio class sub is a nuclear powered, nuclear armed submarine. It's part of the U.S. nuclear arsenal. We have 18 Ohio class subs, and 14 of them carry Trident missiles, which are the ICBMs, and then 4 of them carry the Tomahawk missiles, and all of them have nuclear warheads on the missiles. Okay, so the ones that carry the Tomahawk missiles carry 154 Tomahawks each. Okay, and each one of those Tomahawks has a W-80 nuclear warhead, which has a blast yield of 150 kilotons. That's 5 times or more powerful than the bombs that the U.S. dropped on Japan in Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. Okay, 154 of those on just one of these. And what you're looking at here is a tweet from U.S. Central Command yesterday afternoon saying that on November the 5th, an Ohio-class submarine arrived in the U.S. Central Command area of responsibility. And I think this is the USS Florida. This thing departed from Scotland like 2 weeks ago. And I told you guys that it was most likely going to the Mediterranean or to the Middle East to prepare for a strike on Iran, because in order to decapitate Iran's nuclear arsenal and their military, you need nuclear weapons. There's no way you can do it conventionally. So they're moving the assets into the region. Okay, they have the Ohio class sub with the Tomahawk missiles. Okay, the USS Florida. They have B-1s in Turkey. They also have 24 F-15E Strike Eagles, I believe, in Jordan. And the F-15E Strike Eagle is a fighter jet that the U.S. Air Force has that is specifically designed for deep strike missions. And right now, its primary role is for nuclear weapons delivery. And it's the only fighter jet in the United States that has been cleared to deliver the latest version of the B-61 nuclear gravity bomb, which is the Mod 12. And the Mod 12 has a very special steering kit that is attached to the bomb to help it guide itself to the target. So it's very accurate. Okay. In prior versions, these bombs were not accurate at all. They were just gravity bombs with a very high blast yield. And they would just, drop it, let's say, over a general area if there were a nuclear war or some kind of an escalation. But now they have the Mod 12, which basically steers the bomb as it's falling to the target. Okay. And so the F-15E is the only fighter jet that the U.S. Air Force has that is cleared to deliver these nuclear weapons. Okay. And we have 24 of those in the region now. And we also have the Eisenhower strike group, the carrier strike group, which is going towards Iran. It's in the Red Sea now. We have the Marine Expeditionary Unit in the Red Sea, which has 2,500 Marines and 2 amphibious landing ships. We have 2 French helicarriers in the Mediterranean now. We have the Gerald Ford Carrier Strike Group in the Mediterranean. And we also have a British aircraft carrier, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, in the Persian Gulf. So, guys, this is a massive amount of firepower. Okay, massive. This is not normal by any means. Okay. So something big is about to go down. I think it's very possible that the U.S. is going to launch a preemptive strike on Iran, which is going to involve the use of these nuclear weapons from the Ohio class sub, from the B-1s, and from the F-15Es, okay? Because that's the only way the U.S. can truly destroy Iran's nuclear arsenal or their nuclear program, because Iran is very mountainous, and it's a huge country. It's like the size of Alaska, and it's nothing but mountains, and they have bunkers everywhere. So they have to be able to penetrate through the mountains, and the only way to do that is with nuclear weapons, okay? Conventional weapons will not work against Iran. It's a massive country. Just look at a map, and you'll see how much bigger it is than Iraq, okay? So any strike on Iran is going to have to be nuclear, not conventional. And this is very concerning, though. So a B-1 flying over Saudi Arabia recently, I think it was yesterday, with this sniper pod, okay, a target designator, a target locator. And right now, as of 12:57 p.m. Eastern time, we currently have 3 nuclear war command and control planes up in the air and a nuke sniffer plane up in the air as well. Okay, so earlier this morning we had 2 take off from Tinker Air Force Base at about the same time. One went out into the Gulf and it turned its transponder off once it got over Houston. So that's very concerning. Usually these planes don't turn off their transponders unless it's a serious situation and they need to hide their location. And these planes are responsible for communicating with our nuclear forces. They can also remotely launch all of our Minuteman III ICBMs in the event that the ground-based launch control centers were to be taken out by enemy missiles or enemy warheads. We would still be able to launch all of our missiles from the air from these planes, okay? And these planes also have giant antennas. They're like 5 miles long, and they use those to communicate with our submerged nuclear-armed submarines, and they would use those if our ground-based transmitter sites got taken out by enemy missiles. And our ground-based transmitters are located in Cutler, Maine, in Jim Creek, Washington, and also in Hawaii. And then we also have one at the Harold Holt facility in Australia. So we actually have 4 globally, but we have 2 in the mainland US, 1 in Hawaii. Those are VLF, very low frequency transmitter sites, and they would use VLF frequencies to communicate with our submarines to issue nuclear attack options and nuclear weapon launch orders, okay? So these planes are essential. They're one of the most important, if not the most important plane in the U.S. military. We have one flying over the Smokies right now, pretty interesting. And here we have the third one. It took off from Travis Air Force Base, which is their West Coast home base, and it flew over Eastern Oregon. And it either turned its transponder off, or because the area here is so remote, there's no receivers here that are able to pick up the location of this flight. Okay, so it either turned its transponder off, or it lost reception essentially. And then here we have a nuke sniffer plane that's currently flying over eastern Colorado. These planes can detect traces of radiation in the atmosphere. So this is very, very concerning, guys, to have three of these airborne, plus a nuke sniffer, plus the B-1 flying over Saudi Arabia, plus the Ohio class sub showing up near Iran. Things are about to go down, guys. I'm telling you, something big is about to go down. And then just politically, a few days ago, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a resolution almost unanimously, 350 votes in favor and only 53 against, to declare that Iran cannot be allowed to become a nuclear power, and that the U.S. is going to do anything necessary to stop that. Okay. And that they would also authorize Israel and American allies to also do anything necessary to stop that from happening. The House passed that already on Thursday, a Wednesday night. Okay. I believe it was Wednesday night. So what does that mean? That's basically a green light for Israel and the U.S. military to strike Iran and decapitate their nuclear program, destroy it completely. All right. And it was announced yesterday that Richard Blumenthal, the Democrat senator from Connecticut, and Lindsey Graham, the Republican from South Carolina, these are senior senators, and they're part of the intelligence committees and armed services committees. And they're coming up with a bipartisan resolution in the Senate that would allow the U.S. to declare war on Iran if Hezbollah or any other forces attack Israel or attack American bases in the region. Okay. So that is huge, guys. We're literally on the verge of declaring war on Iran, and it's happening very quietly. The mainstream media is not talking about it, and you're not going to know about it until suddenly you wake up and there's news coming out that the U.S. fired 100 nuclear tipped tomahawks at Iran across various bunkers and destroyed the bunkers. I'm telling you, it's coming, guys. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Okay? It's coming. So get prepared. Make sure you have everything you need, because when that time comes, the panic is going to be unreal. Okay? People are going to buy everything, firearms, ammunition, food, any prep items. They're all going to be flying off the shelves. Okay? So start preparing now if you haven't already. And just want to show you guys what's going on right now over Israel and the Eastern Mediterranean. We have a KC-2 Voyager aerial refueler and a British Eurofighter Typhoon operating off the coast of Lebanon here, close to Syria. Very interesting. And we have two U.S. C-17 Globemasters flying out of Jordan. Okay, they just arrived in Jordan and now they're leaving. So the U.S. is continuing to move massive amounts of equipment into the region, in addition to the nuclear assets. Okay, all of the B-1s, the Ohio class subs, the carriers, the Strike Eagles, all that stuff. We're moving tons and tons, literally tons and tons and tons of ammunition and weapons and ordnance and combat vehicles and tier 1 operators into the region, guys. Okay, this is a serious buildup that we haven't seen in decades. Okay, decades. The amount of naval forces in this region is unprecedented in our lifetime. And I'm telling you, it's not for Hamas, okay, or Hezbollah. You don't need two aircraft carriers, a nuclear armed sub, B-1s, 24 strike eagles to deal with some terrorists. Okay, this is for Iran. All right. So I think we're going to see it. I think we're going to see a strike on Iran, and honestly, it's overdue. Okay, it's overdue. It should have been done a long time ago because now Iran is on the verge of having nuclear weapons, and for all we know, they may already have nuclear weapons. We're just not being told about it. Okay, and maybe our government finally realized, oh crap, they literally have warheads, and we got to stop them now because they're going to become the next North Korea soon. So it's a serious situation, guys. Very, very serious what's going on. And I want you guys to be prepared. That's why I'm sharing all this information with you. I'm not trying to scare anybody. This is what's really happening. Okay. If it scares you, that's not my problem. I'm sorry. Okay. You need to deal with your fear. You have to conquer your fears. You can't just, live in a state of fear, and any kind of bad news you just immediately say, oh, that's not a big deal, this is fear mongering. And here we have the location of the British aircraft carrier. It's right off the coast of Qatar. So we already have the British aircraft carrier in the Persian Gulf. We're waiting for the Eisenhower to get there. Once the Eisenhower gets into position, I think that's when things are going to really kick off. Okay. Think about it. Why would you have two aircraft carriers off the coast of Iran if the threat is in Israel? Hamas, Hezbollah, the militias in Syria. Why would you move two aircraft carriers to Iran? Okay. We also have some concerning information being confirmed today by the Pentagon press secretary. The Pentagon is officially confirming that the number of attacks on U.S. bases rose from 30 to 38 over the weekend. So 8 more attacks over the weekend on U.S. bases. And I think it's higher than that. I think it's over 50. All right. I think we're even pushing up to 60 attacks now. And what's even more concerning is that the Pentagon confirmed that the number of U.S. service members wounded rose to 46. 46 U.S. troops have been wounded so far. We don't know what kind of wounds they got. Did they get bruises? Did they get scratches? Or did they get concussions? Did they get hit with shrapnel? We don't know. Okay. But remember, 2 weeks ago, there was information that came out that apparently up to 20 U.S. troops got traumatic brain injuries from some of these drone attacks and missile attacks on the U.S. bases. Okay, so we don't really know. Everything is being kept secret, guys. And that's what's very concerning. It's when you don't hear anything is when something is really happening. Okay. And apparently, there were 6 massive attacks on U.S. bases overnight in Iraq and Syria. And this is while Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is in the region. He's in Turkey today, but yesterday he was in Iraq. He made an unannounced visit to Iraq where he met with the Iraqi prime minister. And it's almost like this is kind of making a mockery of the Secretary of State, because when he met with the Iraqi prime minister, he warned that the U.S. would respond if there were more attacks on U.S. bases. And as soon as he leaves Iraq, they launch like multiple strikes on U.S. bases. So it's almost like mocking the U.S. and Blinken. Okay, but apparently there were 3 attacks against the al-Assad base in the western Anbar province of Iraq. There was an attack on the U.S. military base Harir near the Erbil airport in northern Iraq. There was an attack on the U.S. military base Al-Tanf in southern Syria. And there was an attack on the U.S. military base Tal Bidar in the Hasaka province in northern Syria. Okay, that's a lot of attacks, guys. And we have some concerning videos coming out from Hezbollah, and they're showing some of their missiles here. This is one of the videos they released, and it's showing some missiles. And there's a note released with this video saying the future is near. Okay, so obviously this is basically a threat to Israel and U.S. bases possibly. I mean, Hezbollah could even launch these missiles at U.S. bases, guys. All right. So this is very serious. Things are spiraling out of control in the Middle East, guys. They're spiraling out of control. This is just going in lockstep with what the Bible says is going to happen in the end times. Okay, the Bible says all these countries are going to come against Israel. All these Middle Eastern countries, North African countries, Russia, some Asian countries, they're all going to form an alliance against Israel. And we see that happening now. We see the whole world turning on Israel, guys. Okay, even the UN Secretary General is against Israel now. Okay, we're seeing all these pro Gaza, pro Hamas protests across the entire world. All right, these pro Hamas protests. These people are literally protesting because they're supporting terrorists that brutally killed 1,300 Israelis and kidnapped hundreds of people, and they're supporting them. Okay, there was just a protest in Tacoma, Washington. There were some college students. They don't even know what the heck they're protesting about. Okay, here's the latest situation in Gaza. You can see the Israeli military basically has the entire Gaza city surrounded now, and they've completely cut off Gaza City from the rest of Gaza. So now the siege is going to begin. They've surrounded the city, they've enveloped it, and now they're going to slowly move in and try to clear the whole city out, which is going to be very time consuming. And there will be a good amount of casualties, all right, on the Israeli side, plus the tunnel system underground. So this is going to be a big mess, and it's not going to be a quick operation for them to clear that city out. All right, it's going to take months, and I don't think it's going to get that far, because I think what's going to happen is Iran is going to get involved, and then we're going to strike Iran. We have some concerning information coming out that residents of a town in northern Israel are now being evacuated. This is the town of Kiryat Shimona, and it's right on the border with Lebanon. And apparently, residents are being asked to leave the city immediately. A spokesman for the city announced residents of Kiryat Shimona who have stayed in the city until now are required to leave the city immediately following the escalation of the security situation and the increase in shelling of Kiryat Shimona. We ask all those who remain in the city to leave Kiryat Shimona immediately. Get out of the town and save your life. We will get through this together. Okay, so Israel is now evacuating more and more towns in the northern part, okay, close to Lebanon. We have some breaking news coming out of Lebanon. Apparently, the Al Qassam brigades in Lebanon, which are the Hezbollah forces, released a statement that they launched at least 30 rockets towards southern Israel. And they're claiming that this was in response to Israel's killing and aggression against the people of our country in the Gaza Strip. We bombarded the city of Nahariya and south of Haifa in the north of Israel with 16 rockets. And the Israeli army confirmed that approximately 30 rockets were launched from Lebanon over the past few hours, and that it is responding now with artillery fire. So this is the biggest rocket barrage launched from Lebanon since 2006. And not only was this the most amount of rockets fired from Lebanon since 2006, but also the deepest into Israeli territory. Okay, so that's very concerning. And in the vicinity of the Lebanese army headquarters in southern Lebanon, apparently Israel launched an airstrike in that area, and the Jordanian army intercepted a missile fired from Iraq towards Israel. Okay, that is huge news, guys. And the Jordanian prime minister said that any attempts to displace Palestinians from Gaza or the West Bank are a red line, and Jordan will consider them a declaration of war. Okay, so Jordan is saying that they're not going to allow civilians from Gaza or the West Bank to be pushed out of their territories and moved to Jordan. That's going to be considered that's a declaration of war by Israel against Jordan. So that is insane, guys. Even Jordan is turning on Israel now. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that the Anglo-Saxons are pushing the Middle East towards a big war. And the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said that if Iran's terrorist axis is not defeated, Europe will be next in line. Secretary of State Antony Blinken arrived in Turkey after making a surprise visit to Iraq to visit the Prime Minister of Iraq, where he warned other players in the Middle East not to attack U.S. bases or Israel, which they ended up doing right after he left. And the Iraqi prime minister is now meeting with the Iranian president and the Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, after he met with Antony Blinken yesterday. And here's a picture. And the Iranian president Raisi said today that continuing to commit massacres against the Palestinian people in Gaza will have consequences that extend beyond the region. And the supreme leader of Iran, the Ayatollah Khamenei, during his meeting with the prime minister of Iraq, said that the U.S. directly intervenes in the management of aggression in Gaza. Iran and Iraq together can increase the pressure on the U.S. to stop the aggression. So looks like he's going to try to get the Iraqi prime minister to, help the axis of resistance against the U.S. The axis of resistance is Iran and all these anti-Israeli, anti-American forces. And the Iranian foreign affairs minister met with the Iraqi foreign minister yesterday, right before the Iraqi prime minister went to Iran. And the Iranian foreign minister said over the phone that the United States' growing violence against civilians in the Gaza Strip will inevitably cause the war to expand. The British Foreign Ministry has announced that they have withdrawn some of their embassy staff from Lebanon. And for the first time in history, Israel shot down a ballistic missile in space. The Arrow air defense system shot down a missile launched by the Houthi rebels in Yemen outside Earth's atmosphere. It is believed that this is the first time ever in history, okay, the first time ever that a ballistic missile was actually intercepted during like a wartime conflict, a live ballistic missile with a warhead, not a test, but an actual true ballistic missile in a wartime scenario actually intercepted in space. This is the first time in history this has ever been done. And apparently they used the Arrow missile defense system. And South Africa has summoned all of its diplomats in Israel for a meeting. And we have some concerning information that there's a massive deployment of Chinese Navy near Taiwan. Okay, so here we have the Shandong Carrier Strike Group, and you can see it's right outside of Taiwan, and there's multiple Chinese warships outside of Taiwan right now. We also have two U.S. carrier strike groups in the region. We have the Ronald Reagan Carrier Strike Group and the Carl Vinson. So things could pop off in Asia, guys. We got the Korean Peninsula here. We got Taiwan here. This entire area could turn into a war zone. Japan could get involved. The Philippines could get involved. This is very, very serious, guys. Okay, very serious. And I want to just share some flights with you. Here we have an Iranian government plane flying from China to Iran. Very strange. That was this morning. Here we have a plane flying from Luxembourg all the way to Fairbanks. This is a NATO plane, an MRTT plane, very strange. And here we have some NATO reconnaissance in Eastern Europe. We have a Swedish reconnaissance plane patrolling Poland. And we also have a NATO reconnaissance plane flying over Latvia, an AWACS plane that was earlier this morning. We had a NATO sub Hunter plane fly all the way up into the Russian Arctic, where Russia has their Northern Fleet base near the Kola Peninsula. And I want to just quickly update you on the situation in Ukraine. We have some serious updates in Ukraine. So, the general of Ukraine's military released a statement about the situation with the war. And he gave some details about what's going on, and it's not looking good for Ukraine, unfortunately. He said that the war with Russia has reached a deadlock and that a large technological leap is needed to get out of it. And he also said that during 5 months of the counteroffensive, Ukraine only advanced 17 kilometers, which is about 10 miles. He said there will be no deep and beautiful breakthrough. He said Russia lost at least 150,000 troops, but life is cheap in Russia, and Putin's benchmark is the First and Second World Wars, in which Russia lost tens of millions. So he's basically saying that, 150,000 dead is nothing for Putin. He's looking at what Russia lost in World War II, which is, tens of millions. So Putin basically feels like he can just keep sending Russian troops nonstop forever because he's using that as his benchmark. He said that during the counteroffensive, the Ukrainian military encountered unprecedented minefields, and that slowed their advances in many areas. He said that in Avdiivka, Russia has advanced hundreds of meters and overturned two of Ukraine's armies there. And he said that Ukraine is seeing everything that Russia is doing, but in order to get out of the current impasse, they need something new. They need a technological solution of some kind, but he said there's no signs yet that it will be found. He said that the weapons provided by the West were not enough for Ukraine to win the war, but just enough to support Ukraine. And he said that the F 16s, which will now appear in Ukraine next year, are not as useful anymore because Russia has improved their air defense, including their S 400 missiles, which can easily reach the city of Dnipropetrovsk. And Ukraine struck Russian positions in Crimea with ATACMS on October 30th. He confirmed that. And he said that the war should not settle in the trenches. He said that the greatest risk is a tedious trench war, which could drag on for years and exhaust the Ukrainian state. And he said that would benefit the Russian Federation, where the population is 3 times larger than Ukraine's and the economy is 10 times larger. So he said the longer the war continues, the more difficult it will be. All right. So he's asking for some kind of serious technology, which the only thing I could think of would be some kind of NATO intervention or nuclear weapons or some kind of long range strike weapons with a longer range than what they've been getting. Maybe permission to attack Russian bases in Russia with American weapons. Who knows? But this is very concerning, guys. And the office of the president of Ukraine criticized Zaluzhny, the general of Ukraine, for what he said about the deadlock in the conflict. And U.S. and European officials have begun behind the scenes discussion with the Ukrainian government about options that could lead to peace talks with Russia to end the war. NBC News was citing unnamed American officials, and apparently these discussions are centered around what Ukraine would have to give up in order to reach agreements. Officials also said Ukraine will likely have until the end of the year or a little longer before more urgent discussions about peace talks begin. All right, so it looks like we may have some kind of a peace agreement in Ukraine, which would be a huge blow to NATO, a huge blow to the U.S. This would be very, very tragic if that's true. It would weaken NATO, weaken America, and basically the alliance of Russia, China, and Iran would come out on top from this. And you can thank the Biden administration for that. And apparently, Russians are preparing for a massive new assault on Avdiivka. And the Russian Federation dropped a record number of aerial bombs on Kherson yesterday. Apparently, 87 aerial bombs were dropped on the Kherson region yesterday. This was confirmed by the Ukrainian Ministry of Internal Affairs. And apparently, the Ukrainian armed forces have set up a bridgehead across the Dnieper River, and they're already pushing 3 kilometers inland. So let me just show you a map here. You can see they cross the river here near the town of Krinky, and they're pushing in. So that's some good news, I guess, out of all that bad news coming from the general. And then here we have a satellite picture showing a Russian warship that was hit in Crimea recently. You can see there's this black mark here on the side of the ship, and that's where a Ukrainian missile hit. And that's pretty much it for this update, guys. I'm going to continue to update you on the situation in the Middle East and also in Eastern Europe. So make sure you're subscribed, hit the bell icon so you get notified when I post these updates. And other than that, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.